Thank you all for tuning into this podcast. My name is Winstony. Welcome to the Stony Safe Space podcast. This is the very first episode. I'm actually really excited because I've been wanting to start a podcast for years now, but it always felt overwhelming because I don't know. I don't know where to start. And, every time I try to figure out what to do or how to even begin, I always end up procrastinating. And yeah, but we're here now. I created this podcast to have a place where I and, everyone listening can grow in mindset, grow in knowledge, in confidence, cope with whatever issues that I have going on, and anything that I learn from the issues I have going on that I can pass along to other people that might help them. So I'm starting this self-improvement journey, and I'm bringing you all along with me. I've actually started the self-improvement journey years ago. I guess this is just me, taking it to the next level with this podcast. In this first episode, I really want to talk about negative thoughts because I know we all have them. I know I battle with negative thoughts constantly every day. I had to push through negative thoughts in order to even start this podcast. Even to record this first episode, you wouldn't even believe the amount of takes that I've done. Today isn't even the first time I started recording this, believe it or not. I've done many takes of this, and every single time, every time I've listened to them, I was like, why are you even doing this? Like, what is this? What is this for? Like, nobody's going to want this. I listen to it, I leave it alone, I go do something else because I'm like, yeah, this is stupid. Even with my YouTube journey, some of you might know me on YouTube to do hair content. Throughout that journey, throughout my whole YouTube journey, it's been nothing but like constant negative thinking of like, okay, yeah, no one's gonna watch this. No one wants to see hair, or hair is boring. Like, no one cares. Honestly, that's a part of the reason why my videos are so scattered and so inconsistent. Even though the numbers are telling me that, people are watching, it's still a constant mental battle of like, okay, no one really wants to see this, or it's just boring to people. So that's why I wanted to start this podcast talking about negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are those hurtful thoughts, perceived flaws, weaknesses, or failures that you keep replaying in your head, or that your brain thinks might happen when you think to do something that it cannot predict the outcome for. And, you can't really blame, I guess you can blame your brain for doing it, but it's a survival instinct. One example is comparing yourself to people on social media, which I do all the time. I'm sure we all do. And you tell yourself that you can never compare to that person. And wow, how do they get such perfect pictures, or how do they get such a perfect shape? Everything about their life seems happy and they seem so stress-free. Your brain gives weight to what you lack than what you have. It's wired to do that. It's supposed to be used to keep you alive, to alert you to things like when you don't have food, or when you're too cold and need to warm up for survival. But when you take a brain that operates like that and you put it into everyday life, it starts pointing out the negative in every area of your life, even when positive thinking would be better for you. Another example is like in a group discussion. I know I've done this in school. Speaking up and giving your opinion. You think like, okay, I'm not going to give my opinion. Don't get me wrong. There's some of us out there are like very outspoken. I'm not really a very outspoken person. Sometimes if I'm in a group discussion, I'm like, I'm not going to say my opinion. It might be stupid. And, that's just, again, an example of negative self-talk. And sometimes your opinion would be the best opinion in the discussion. And then you say your opinion, and then now the conversation shifts to what you're saying because it's the most profound thing, that was said in the whole discussion. This is just your brain thinking that it's going to save you from embarrassment when you're actually adding a lot of value to that conversation. The brain clings to negative thinking because the negative thinking is a defense mechanism that helps avoid disappointment. Anything unknown to the brain will perceive as a threat and try to steer you away from it. It also comes from past experiences. Something might not have gone right for you in the past, so your brain will think that it'll never go right. It's kind of like the situation where, an example is you touch a hot stove, you get burned, right? Your brain knows to never touch a hot stove again. In that situation, a hot stove will always be hot. So that thinking is justified. But that doesn't mean your negative past experiences will always be negative. It's just like trying something new, like riding a bicycle. You learn to ride a bike. The first time you might fall down if you don't have training wheels. But that don't mean that you're going to fall down every time. Eventually, you're going to get on that bike and you're going to start to ride. There are situations where your past experience was just an experience and it can always be improved and you can grow from it, do better from it. Your brain doesn't always recognize that. The dangerous thing about these thoughts is if you don't recognize them early in the beginning, when you first start thinking them, it can easily reinforce itself. You keep thinking about it over and over to the point where you believe it with an absolute fact. Then that thought becomes your life, which then keeps you limited. Some people have negative thoughts deeply rooted in them from childhood that they don't even realize, and it shapes their entire life. And some people get frustrated in that life that they're in and don't even realize that certain negative thoughts are influencing them in some way in every decision that they make in their daily life that keeps them in that life that they don't want to live. It's hard getting out of that type of thinking, and some of us eventually do, but the first step is to actually know that that's what's happening. Know that you're having this thinking that's keeping you where you are and keeping you in this pattern that you're living every day in life. And this can be difficult for some people to actually know that that's what's happening because a lot of people have the, oh, that's life mentality, or it is what it is. One thing that I like to do is I like to look back on my day and look at moments where I felt like I was holding myself back for something, or I felt restricted mentally in some way, something that made me uncomfortable and I steered away from it. And I would ask myself, was that, restriction for a health or safety concern, or was it just out of fear? Then I would know whether or not it's my mind holding me back. And if it's just my mind holding me back, then I would correct it, which is the key, making sure that you correct it and reinforce it with something positive. For example, with me in this podcast, I told myself I couldn't do it. And then I realized that that thought is just created out of fear. If I was able to make YouTube videos for years, and YouTube and podcasting have similar elements, then why do I think I can't do it? Because it's unknown to my brain. It's my brain going, oh, I don't know. We've never done this before. I don't know what will happen. So let's just stick with what we know. You're trying to grow and change, and I don't like that. Let's just stick to staying like this. I can predict this and protect you. You have to replace the I can't with I can. And I know that sounds so cliche, but honestly, something just as simple as that can really change the outcome of your day. You don't have to necessarily get rid of the negative thoughts because they're always going to be there. You just have to redirect your brain to the opposite of that every time you think of it. And you got to look at it kind of as like a training. You're training your brain to think optimistic when necessary. Obviously, you want to, of course, ground yourself in reality, but also recognize when your brain is just holding you back for no other reason than just fear. So when those negative thoughts come in and, you think them, which is inevitable, you just have to go ahead and go against that thought and say, no, that's not true. I can do this. And then eventually those negative thoughts will start to die down. They won't happen as frequently, to the point now where when they do, you think to yourself like, oh, why am I thinking this? I know this isn't true. And you'll be surprised of how everything around you changed in your life. And when I say everything, I mean, your circumstances, your situations, just from that simple thinking. And like everything in life, the more you do it, the better you get at it. It could take weeks, months, or even years, depending on how your belief is in that thought. But eventually, you won't have to redirect that thought anymore. Sometimes you got to look at it in front of you. Take it from the back of your eyes and put it in front of you. And, I start to learn that a lot with my thoughts, That's why a lot of people would say, oh, it's good to do like a brain dump, which is really just you taking a pen and paper and just whatever thoughts come to your mind, just write it down, write everything down and just look at it. Things look a lot differently when you're actually looking at it in front of you with your eyes and actually reading it back to yourself than if it just gets stuck in your head. You start to realize some of the things that you're thinking are ridiculous when you actually have it on paper. It's the same way like if you're writing, an essay or you're just writing a letter and you read it back to yourself and you start to realize like, oh, this sounded a lot better in my head than it did when I actually write it down, and you start to make changes. It's the same thing with your thoughts. So if you just take a pen and paper or even a keyboard and just start writing everything down that popped up in real time, you do that for a good 3 to 5 minutes, you'll be surprised. You'll really be surprised by how ridiculous some of the things are that you're writing down. At the end of it all, your brain just wants to be comfortable, but comfort is the enemy of growth. So while your brain wants to be comfortable, it's actually better for you to be uncomfortable, to go into those uncharted territories and, go against sometimes what your brain tells you to do, especially when it comes to something that you feel in your heart is the right thing to do when it comes to your growth. Unjustified fear holds you back, and I had to learn that as a content creator. I created this podcast for me and everyone listening to have a moment in the day to just take the armor off that we all wear and relax, just go into maintenance mode for a moment and make small improvements to ourselves that when we put the armor back on and go about our day, we can just handle the situations that we're inevitably going to face in life a little better. I want to thank you all again for listening to this first episode. This one was kind of a short one, but I'm just laying the foundation and we'll go more in depth in future conversations. And hopefully I'll be able to invite guests on in the future to further expand on the conversations. In the next episode, I'm going to talk more about how to build self-confidence. So if negative thoughts tear you down, this next episode will go more into building yourself back up. Remember to always protect your peace, elevate your mind, and just know that the pencil is always there for you to pick up and make changes to your life's blueprint.